technically it's not a playoff game tonight, but it's a playoff game. Massive NFC West showdown between the Rams and the 49ers. 49ers come into this one at home, coming off a massive offensive explosion. The only problem is the Rams had a bigger offensive explosion last week, and they're trying to do something they haven't done since 2018. We're going to break everything down for you on the pregame power-up. Let's go! And we are into the home stretch of the season. Week 15 kicks off tonight. Glad you're with us on the pregame power up here on DraftKings Network. Trey, Wingo here with Claudia. Bellafotto. 4-week sprint till we start the postseason. Playoff positioning on the line. We're going to break it all down for you. Emerson Lazio will join us. The big man, Marshall Newhouse, will also join us. So many things going into this game. It does feel like the NFC West is going to be decided by whichever game is flexed into the Sunday night final game of the regular season. But this is a massive one here between two teams that made the playoffs a year ago.
Yeah, pretty much what you said. And injuries, I think, is going to be the deciding factor here. And, of course, as always, we'll keep you updated throughout the show on the latest there. As far as action goes on this, Trey, it opened 49ers as the 3-point favorite. Got down to 2, buyback, some sharp plays on the 49ers, but the public loving the Rams. As far as the total goes, the look-ahead line was 47. It got to 49, bet up to 50, so some over money. But as of late, there's been some respected bets, the bookmakers say, on the under, so they came all the way down to 48. And again, those injuries, the big ones, Nick Bosa likely to play. Isaac Arundo, huge for that backfield for the Niners, good to go with that sprained foot. Dre Greenlaw activated, and then left tackle Trent Williams. That's the one bad part of this injury report. He is ruled out.
Yeah, we'll get through all the injuries in just a little bit. And look, both teams, if they lose, they're technically not eliminated mathematically, but they're pretty much eliminated. So when I say it's a playoff game without being a playoff game, this is what I actually mean. Here's what's at stake tonight. A win would be huge, but the Niners really need it. A loss would drop them below a 1% chance of making it back to the postseason. For the Rams, the swing is significant. A win and it's a 50-50 shot. A loss, it's down to under 25%. On the DK Sportsbook, the Niners are 10-1 to make it in, while the Rams have much better odds at plus 150. And I said these Rams are coming off that huge win over Buffalo last week. 6 total touchdowns from Bills quarterback Josh Allen wasn't enough to take down this Rams team that put up a season-high 44 points at SoFi to get over 500 for the first time this season. LA finds himself just outside a playoff spot behind 7th-seeded Washington entering Week 15. But this is what we've seen from the Rams before. They're now 6-2 since their Week 6 bye after starting the season 1-4. We've seen this trend over the last couple of years after they started 3-6 last season, then went 7-1 to make the postseason after their bye. They are 10-1 in December games started by Matthew Stafford since trading for him in 2021. But the team says they aren't doing anything differently. They attribute this stretch to consistency in approach and consistency with who they can suit up and put on the field.
In terms of just what's been going on in our building, the way that we've operated and the process that we've put forward, I think it's been very similar. And so, again, just the fact that it happens to match up, like the bye week ends up being the separator between the 2 separate seasons. I don't know what that's about, but I do know that there's just the process has been consistent.
I do think that the work we've been putting in on the practice field and the meeting rooms and all that, over the last however many weeks has been starting to show up, and then just having guys back and getting some continuity is a plus for us as well.
Well, Stafford has been particularly benefiting from the team being healthy on the offensive side of the ball. He has 10 touchdowns and 0 picks over his last 4 starts. He's thrown at least 2 touchdowns in each of those games. And since Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp both returned from injury in Week 8, Stafford is top 4 in the NFL in both passing yards and passing touchdowns. It's so weird, Claudia. It's like the QB is better if the players around him are also better.
Oh,
What a concept.
When your best players are on the field. Okay, got it, yeah. And Trey, these two teams met all the way back in week 3, but things looked a lot different then. You just talked about some of those injuries, the difference between them being on the field and not. The Rams won that one 27-24, but they didn't have Kupp or Nakua. And for the Niners, no Christian McCaffrey, no Deebo Samuel, and no George Kittle, quite literally all of their playmakers. CMC, of course, won't suit up again tonight. He's on that season-ending IR, but the rest of those heavy hitters will be in play. And that brings us to our first in trend, the Niners being a home favorite of about a field goal. And a home favorite has been a good spot overall when it comes to Thursday night football. The favorite's 54-18 straight up. That's hitting 75% if you're looking back to all the way to 2021. Brock Purdy in particular, he is 4-0 straight up and against the spread on Thursday night football. He lights those bright lights. 6-2 against the spread at night games as a favorite of 6 or less, which they are. And then on the other side, Matthew Stafford, 4-7 against the spread against San Francisco. 2-6 straight up, only 2-6 straight up in the last 8 games against them. Now let's take a look at the Niners and how they saved their season with a blowout win over the Bears last week. 38-13 the final. They scored more points in that win than in their previous 3 games combined. With 2 touchdowns, no picks, and over 300 yards, it was Purdy's best game of the season. And it was a great time for it, as this team knows every game from here on out is a must-win if they want to keep their postseason dreams alive.
With where we're at now, it can't be what is the end going to look like. It has to be we have to take care of business today and then tomorrow, and then when the game comes, take care of each play and drive and quarter. It's just being in the moment, man, and not looking too far ahead. And so with that comes, playing together as a team and playing desperate, because we don't have room to lose or anything like that. So it's just where we're at.
Last week felt like the playoffs already. So, since that Buffalo game, every week is a playoff game. So it feels like it this week, and hopefully we can take care of business so next week feels the same.
Keeping an eye on that injury report, San Francisco, like I said, without Trent Williams at left tackle. He's been gone for the last 3 games with that ankle. Isaac Guerrero has a foot injury that he got last week. He's questionable, but it looks like he will be good to go. And then the Rams were hoping to get tight end Tyler Higbee back tonight, but he's still battling a knee. The big one here, though, Trey, the Niners linebacker Dre Greenlaw, for the first time he could be active since that, of course, unfortunate Achilles injury last year in the Super Bowl.
As he was just running on the field after the punt.
That's always the worst.
And Fred Warner's reaction was like, no, because Greenlaw is such a special player. But really, the 49ers injuries problems have been there all year long. McCaffrey has rarely played. Ayuk has been gone since the Chiefs game. And remember, this started in the summer. They had to cancel joint practices with the Saints because they were too banged up. And if you're too banged up when the season starts, it rarely translates into being more healthy when you play 18 or 17 regular season games over 18 weeks. All right, we got something new for you on the show. We're very excited about it. It's something we're calling the PowerUp play call, and it's giving you a shot at a little more money, a $250 bonus bet on DraftKings. Here's how it works. I'm going to give you today's play call. Simply open up the DK Sportsbook app and enter the play call in the search bar. Tap or click the link that comes up and you'll automatically be entered to win. But here is the key. You have to enter by the end of our show. And at that point, we'll notify one lucky winner we've randomly selected. Here's the best part. Today's PowerUp play call, Bunt Cake Blitz. Sure, Bunt Cake Blitz, we got it. Now open up the DK Sportsbook app, enter the code Bunt Cake Blitz before the end of the show, and good luck.
B-U-N-D-T. It's kind of a tough first word.
Well, if you remember my big fat Greek wedding, bunt cake was a big part of that. Of course, yeah. So that's the way it goes. Anyway, well, if we're talking cake and blitzes, who better to know more about cake and blitzes than an offensive lineman? And for that, let's go to our big man, Marshall Newhouse. Spent 11 years in the NFL, played his college ball at TCU. Marshall, we chronicled this. The Niners, if you go through their roster 1 through 53, it's probably the best in the NFL, if healthy. It hasn't been healthy all season long. They've been very inconsistent. Big showing last week after that 3-game losing streak. Is it really just about the injuries, or is there something else you've noticed when you're watching this team?
I wish it was more, but it really just is the injuries. But their injury issue is different than most.
Yeah.
They have constructed this team specifically around the skill set of Deebo Samuel, Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, and Brandon Ayuk. those guys, to certain priority levels are kind of irreplaceable. You can't find a Deebo Samuel in a free agent market. You can't find a Trent Williams just off the street. You can't find what Chris McCaffrey does just in any backfield. Yes, some of the production has been met by backups, but Kyle Shanahan constructed his offense around those guys and the things they do specially. And injuries to other teams, you can kind of plug and play, next guy up. But those guys specifically, especially they've been staggered in the fact that they've been gone. They've never been there all at the same time. This offense just hasn't looked like it possibly can.
Which is tough to adjust when you look at the quarterback in Brock Purdy. Of course, he was a revelation last season, but he is Mr. Irrelevant, so it's tough to adjust with him. Let's go to the other side with Matthew Stafford. Yeah, there we go. With his weapons, of course, they sort of put everything around Cooper Kupp, and then Puka Nacua came out. He balled out last season. Kyron Williams, with all three of those guys on the field. Matthew Stafford, 11-5, with close to 4,400 passing yards, 35 touchdowns, and just 7 interceptions. What do you think the ceiling is for this team when everybody's healthy, Marshall?
I think we saw it last week. I think on any given Sunday, when this team is at full strength, they can beat anyone. They can go to toe-to-toe with anyone in the league. I think there are more questions about their defense in the long term, but we've known Matthew Stafford, people call him the pros pro at quarterback. He's your favorite player's favorite quarterback. And with Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp, Kyron Williams coming on the last few years, this offense is as potent as ever when they're all there. I think the defense, can play opportunistic and on any given Sunday can beat anyone. It's just a matter of can they keep guys on the field and can they make a run, which it looks like they're going to have to do to end the season to make the playoffs.
Well, if nothing else, they know how to do that. As we chronicled, they did it again last year. But I want to go back to the offensive line, and specifically Trent Williams. Like, it's so we all get enamored, right, with running backs, wide receivers, quarterbacks. I always say you don't realize or you don't talk about an offensive line until you don't have one. And we look at the numbers when Christian McCaffrey is there and he's not there. The numbers are very similar when Trent Williams plays or he doesn't play. Now, Grendo looks like he may go tonight, which is amazing because it seems like any running back can get 100 yards in Kyle Shanahan's offense. But can you just put into words how significant the loss of Trent Williams has been to everything this offense wants to do?
Yeah, he's on that level that I think we hadn't seen before, and now it's kind of even being broached by like a Penei Sewell with OC Ben Johnson in Detroit, where you can call plays that feature the tackle, that have him on the front side of a run, that have him pulling, that have him off the ball as an extra tight end, going in motion and crushing someone's skull in. You can only do that with very, very special players. And as the numbers say, when they run to his side, the running backs' yards per carry are significantly higher. The success rate is significantly higher. It's just a matter of he erases the guys in front of him. And it's really not like a supernatural thing, but he just makes it look so easy. He's like a dancing bear. He's running on the second level to running backs. When he's pulling on the edge, you see quarterbacks literally duck out of bounds. There's just not many people that are built like him. Kyle Shanahan saw that when they got him in free agency from Washington and has built this offense to feature things that Trent Williams does well, and that you don't see that happen very often.
I'm sure his absence has something to do with the Niners just being 3-point favorites at home, which basically says on a neutral field, these two teams are even. Which way do you go with the side tonight, Marshall?
Give me the Niners at home. It looks like the weather might be a factor. And I like the Rams a lot, but give me the 49ers at home. I think their backs are against the wall. We haven't seen them like this in a long time, and I think they eke one out.
Yeah, it's interesting. The Rams are trying to do something they haven't done since 2018, which is sweep the season series after that comeback win at SoFi. So we'll see what happens. That's been a problem, too. The 49ers have had leads in these division games. They just haven't been able to seal the deal. We'll see what happens. Marshall, thank you very much. We'll check back with you a little bit later on this program. But we got a lot more coming for you. We're just getting started on this pregame PowerUp to start Week 15. We mentioned Deebo Samuel. Hasn't had the season he was hoping for, or the Niners were hoping for, with career lows in multiple categories. But whatever you do, don't say he's struggling. He takes an issue with that. We'll dive into Deebo's complaints and find out if there's a right way for a receiver to say, just give me the damn ball. That's next on the pregame PowerUp. We continue on the pregame power-up, get you set for the Rams and 49ers. Now, last week against the Bears, Niners wideout Deebo Samuel went under 30 receiving yards for the 4th straight game. Over those 4 games, Samuel has just 97 yards from scrimmage on 17 touches and averages of 5.7 yards per touch. It's the first time Deebo has failed to have at least 50 yards from scrimmage in 4 straight games since a 5-game stretch in 2019. And you heard Marshall Newhouse say earlier on the program, they have certain guys that they count on, and Deebo is one of them. And I want to be clear, we could have picked a lot of pictures to show Deebo Samuel here. We went all in on the Deebo struggling picture right here. Like, you couldn't have created or found a better picture that says, Deebo is hurting, Deebo is upset, Deebo wants the ball. And he tweeted, not struggling at all, just not getting the ball. And then they added the comment here, he leads the team in drops, he is struggling. Gazing for all kinds of things. So Deebo then put that out there. He later deleted the post and added, I'm not mad at any of my teammates. It's not that. I just want more action. But when asked about it this week, very sad, struggling Deebo did not back down.
I mean, you read what you read. A little frustrated for sure. He's like one of my best friends on this team. Like, I absolutely love Deebo and what he's done for me and helping me out. We talk all the time. And, yeah, I think he's right. Like, he's doing great right now with what we ask of him in the offense, and he's not struggling or anything, man. It's just like I've said before about, you know, like guys like Ricky or last year with Ayuk for a little bit. Like, there's just moments, I guess, throughout seasons where, you know, guys just don't get the ball.
To me, Deebo's very close to just breaking it wide open, so I'm very excited for him this Thursday because I think he's going to have one of those amazing Deebo Thursday night games, especially against the Rams. That's what I see. So, yeah, I mean, guys want to voice their opinions on social media. It is what it is. I don't really care. It doesn't make anybody in this locker room think any differently about him. You know, Deebo thinks highly of himself, as we all think very highly of Deebo because he's a hell of a football player. So he just wants to, you know, be out there and contribute to the team, and I think he's going to have an opportunity to do that this weekend or this Thursday.
Hey, man, you went to college. Thursday's definitely part of the weekend. So more on Deebo sad, Deebo struggling, Deebo quotes. He's got career lows in scrimmage yards per game and yards per rush. Remember, they called him that wide back all the time because they use him as a running back as much as a wide receiver. 35 or fewer scrimmage yards in 4 straight games is the longest streak of his career, and he's gone 7 games without finding the end zone, which is also the longest streak of his career. Claudia?
All right, so to be determined on Deebo Samuel's involvement tonight. But one thing we do know is this is a good matchup for Brock Purdy against a Rams defense that has struggled against the pass, ranking 29th in defense and overall efficiency and 30th in deep throws. That's not good because the Niners offense ranks 4th overall and top 10 in overall efficiency. We can look back to that week 3 game when they first met up. Purdy threw a season high 53.3% of his passes downfield, and he completed 12 of 16 for 225 and all 3 of his touchdowns. And more often than not, when he's going downfield, he looks to his guy in Jauan Jennings, who leads the squad in targets and catches, receiving yards, and touchdowns on passes of 10 or more air yards. Looking back at that week 3 game, he was targeted on a career high 44.4% of his routes, hauling in all but 1 of his 12 targets for 175 yards and all 3 of Purdy's touchdown passes. So they use Jauan Jennings to get downfield, and when they get to the red zone, they look to this one player, tight end George Kittle. He leads the squad as the primary red zone target this season, accounting for almost 28% of San Francisco's red zone targets. He also leads the NFL with 113 yards, 8 touchdowns, and 5 catches over expected in the red zone in 2024. So the deep ball goes to Jauan Jennings, and once they get into the red zone, George Kittle is their guy.
So, Claudia, you know what the opposite is of a San Francisco wide receiver like Deebo Samuel struggling? It's everybody for the Rams at wide receiver. Definitively not struggling, including Puka Nacua, leading the way after another incredible performance in Week 14 against the Bills. 12 catches, 163 yards, and a tutty. His 4th career game over 150 receiving yards. Only Randy Moss and Jerry Rice have more since the AFL-NFL merger of 1970. You've heard of them. They both had 5 such games. Cooper Kupp also doing his part as well, last week with 5 catches for 92 yards and a touchdown. And the key to the Rams' success has really been this duo being on the field and being healthy. Kupp and Nacua have played 20 regular season games together as teammates. They're averaging over 5.5 receptions and over 65 receiving yards each in those games. They're just the third duo in the Super Bowl era to put up those kind of numbers, joining Antonio Brown and Juju Smith-Schuster for the Steelers, and Larry Fitzgerald and Anquan Boldin for the Cardinals. But don't forget about the running game for the Rams as well. Kyren Williams is also putting up massive numbers. He's 5th in the NFL with just over 1,000 rushing yards, 1,013 to be specific, and tied for 3rd in rushing touchdowns with 12. It's his 2nd consecutive season with 1,000 rushing yards and at least 12 touchdowns. The last player to have multiple years like that in their first 3 career seasons, Adrian Peterson, back in 2007 and 2009. Over the last 2 seasons, as we go next-gen stats, what these guys mean to this Rams team, you put Kupp, Nacua, Stafford, Williams on the field. The Rams have averaged 6.5 yards per play. That's a 48.3 success rate, plus 0.10 EPA per play, and a 17.1 explosive play rate, all of which would lead the NFL. And as we mentioned, the team is 11-5 when they all play, just 6-8 when they don't. And you mentioned the numbers for Matthew Stafford. He's remarkable when he has this thing in the field. And again, guys, he was the first overall pick in 2009. This is year 16, and he's playing as well now as he ever has.
Yeah, and it's all because of the guys around
Correct.
him. Everybody, pressed the panic button when Cooper Kupp got hurt, and then Nacua said, "Hold on, guys, wait a minute. I can catch the ball too."
Good.
And then you have Kyren Williams, who can be catching passes out of the backfield as well. So much talent, and when healthy, they can beat anybody.
They absolutely can. And we take a look at some of the other things, including the betting splits for tonight.
Yeah, so I mentioned off the top, the Sharps are liking the Niners. We've seen some late money coming in on the under. Specifics, 59% of the handle on the over, 71% of the bets. As far as a prop goes, Puka Nacua, we were just talking about, 90 and the hooks. We need 91 or more. That is the number, the line set. 79% of the handle on the over, despite that number being high, and the bet's just a little bit less. For more on the liability on this game tonight, here's our anonymous DraftKings informant, Captain Book.
If you think you've heard the last of these Niners, think again, because odds are they're going to win again and cover. How do I know? Because they like it. So if you're with the sharp fellas tonight, thinking the captain will be off duty, just get yourself another delivery boy, because you're looking down the barrel of a 49ers run game that can't be stopped no matter who they tap to handle the rock. I know what you're thinking, public. You're thinking, does the captain believe the Niners can win 10 or only 9? To tell you the truth, I'm not so sure myself with all of tonight's excitement. But on 12/12, one of the most powerful days of the year that can smoke San Fran's playoff hopes right out, you gotta ask yourself a question. Do I feel lucky? Well, do ya, public?
Okay, I know what he was doing. You have no idea.
No idea.
That was a really, actually a decent impersonation of Clint Eastwood as Dirty Harry, the Dirty Harry film.
Oh.
Well before your time.
Okay.
Well
I was
before.
going to say, I have no idea.
I was about to say, that of all the people that
came out
might
last
get
year.
it, don't think she was going to get it. But that was, obviously, Captain Book, that was well done. Someone else that probably got that reference is a guy that we know very well. Let's bring him in now on the DraftKings trade floor in Vegas, a VSiN analyst and former NFL wide receiver, Mike Pritchard. Pritch, you got the Dirty Harry, right?
Are you calling him old? Pritch?
I'm calling him seasoned.
Totally got that.
I'm calling him seasoned.
Right.
Okay, we're seasoned.
Generations. Right?
Yeah, we're different generations.
Right, we're seasoned. I like that.
Right.
Speaking of generations, okay, I call these wide receivers these days, Pritch, wide redivas. Okay, you have AJ Brown. They've got 9 straight. They won 9 straight, but he's not getting the ball, and he's upset. And we talked about what Deebo posted. As a former wide receiver, what's the best way to tell someone I want the ball more?
Directly. And
there it is.
Hesitation.
Bingo.
Absolutely. I mean, there's nothing wrong with being a diva, but we wouldn't dare call Michael Jordan a diva or Kobe Bryant a diva, right? When they want the ball in critical situations. I think as a playmaker, that's how you're made up. I mean, you want the ball. You want your team to rely on you, and Deebo is a playmaker. And so I think if he needs to be more vocal, if he needs to let the coaches know, say, look, I want to be more involved. I want the ball more, even though Kyle wants to spread it around with this offense, then that's what Deebo needs to do. Now, I think he'll get plenty of opportunity tonight against the Rams. This is about matchups, and Deebo as a playmaker on the field, whether it's in the backfield or even lined up out wide, he has to touch the ball. He has to be targeted at least 10, 15 times with carries and with receptions as well.
Well, that's the issue. We haven't seen him really do much out of the backfield. But when you look at the numbers, Pritch, he leads all receivers in touches on the Niners. He's only second behind Kittle in overall snaps. So he's getting the ball. But he also leads in drops. And like we said, he just hasn't done much when he is getting the ball out of the backfield. So how much of this really is the play calling, or is it Deebo? And also taking me in the locker room, are the guys fibbing? Does this start a little drama when you see tweets like this come about?
You know what? Not so much drama. I mean, I don't think you take it into the locker room. You might take it at home and tell wifey and all this about what's going on in the locker room, but not in the locker room. I think, everybody respects Deebo, like George Kittle was talking about. But, for the San Francisco 49ers to work and what's worked for them over the years is that they create mismatches, right? So you have Deebo and Christian and George and all these wide receivers. Okay, do you go dime personnel? Do you go heavy personnel because they might run the football at you? So they don't have that advantage right now, and so they're more of a conventional offense. Deebo needs to step up, and to be honest with you, Claudia, I think that was his way of trying to say, I'm going to step up because I need more opportunities out there.
Yeah, but you got to be careful which player you go home and tell it to wifey, because some of those wifeys will put it on a podcast and then they have to talk about it. Not saying who, but it might be one of the teams playing tonight or one of their best players. I'll just leave it at that. All right, let's talk about Puka Nacua now. Look, Peter King described him perfectly the other day. He said, you look at him, he doesn't have a wide receiver's body. He looks like a surfer out there. Yet here he is doing all these incredible things. That sideline catch he had against the Bills, one of the best catches we've seen the entire season. As a former wide receiver who honed his craft, when you watch Puka, what's the thing that impresses you the most?
I love his game. He's so deceptive out there. You're right. I mean, you don't think he can do the things that he does, right? And so you're caught by surprise with it. Whether it's speed, whether it's his elusiveness on his routes, or whether it's his hands, catching everything that's thrown his way. But he also has a quarterback that is uncanny with ball placement. And Stafford, you guys talked about this earlier, he is playing lights out right now. And with Cooper, I mean, this is an interesting Rams roster, right? They got a Cooper, they have a Puka, and they have a Tutu, all on their wide receiver squad. But Puka, he is incredible. And Stafford's finding these guys. And certainly McVay, too, is helping out the 11 personnel on that aspect and running the ball and everything that's involved with allowing these guys to have the mismatches themselves and the ability to get open as well.
I always forget about Tutu too, but I didn't even mean to do that. But he's involved in the passing game as well. Just more options.
Right.
Fritz, this is a game after your own heart. I know you like the dogs. The Rams, as a 3-point dog, are seeing some action. Not too surprising, getting that key number of a field goal. Which way are you going?
Well, Claudia, earlier in the week, you could have got San Francisco at 2.5. I mean, you do that, right?
Yeah.
Now it's at 3. It's interesting because Kyle has owned McVay. I think Kyle really, he's the best play caller in the league. And I think he has an advantage when it comes to calling plays against the Rams. Now, it's the personnel too, right? Can they get it going? Can they get it cranked up? The 49ers, I think they can do that at home. They're in a desperate spot. Can they cover the 3? I'm going to lean towards the 49ers here. I think in a desperation spot, the Rams with so much on the field last week against Buffalo, can they duplicate that as an offense? That's going to be hard to do against a passing defense the caliber of the 49ers. So give me the 49ers, and I'm going to lay that 3.
All right, just to let everybody know, we're talking about catching. The best catch of the entire season just happened in the studio. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Pritch,
we
nicely
almost
done.
lost the camera.
We'll see what happens tonight. As always, we appreciate the information. We're looking at a 49ers team that may not make the postseason here, and these Super Bowl hangovers, we've all been there. I'm just going to say it.
Me?
Hangovers.
Never.
You are a liar. We have all been there. And the Super Bowl hangover is a real thing for the Niners under Kyle Shanahan. Seasons following the Super Bowl appearance, they're 12-17, 6-10 in 2020, and 6-7 in the season. All other games, they're 58-41, Claudia.
Well, Trey, running back has been a revolving door for the Niners this season, but is it a curse or coincidence? Emerson Latzia investigates the injury-plagued position for San Francisco. That's next when we come back.
We continue on the pregame power. Let's continue our theme that Claudia stumbled on and pitched them. We have a Puka, we have a Cooper, and now a Tutu. We also have a Kyren and a Corum. There you go with the Rams. There's a lot going on there. But Kyren Williams, look at all the lines. I mean, he's been very, very impressive. Tuna 29 carries, 87 yards, and 2 touchdowns in that game against the Bills. He leads the NFL with 29 total touchdowns over the last 2 seasons. So that was Kyren. Now let's do Corum, the rookie running back, Blake, out of Michigan, playing well. Recently, we've seen him take some of the load away from Kyren. Against Buffalo, Corum carried the ball 8 times for 34 yards. He had 29 snaps, which was the most in any game this season. Rams head coach Sean McVay said this week it's good to be able to get Corum some work, as it will keep Kyren fresher through the course of the game. And Corum has carried the ball 8 times in each of the last 2 weeks, which comes after he hadn't logged any more than 5 rushing attempts since week 2. They haven't taken away from each other, as both have had their most rushing yards this season against the Saints, with Williams going for 104 and Corum going for 42. Claudia.
Must be nice. The Rams have 2 healthy backs, the Niners are a much different story, Trey. Down to their 4th string back against the Bears, Isaac Guerrero looked great. 78 yards, a couple touchdowns, but he couldn't escape that dang game unscathed. He suffered a foot injury in the game. He's questionable, as we said, heading in tonight. Reports look good, though. He suited up. We'll keep you updated. It really hasn't mattered, though, who's been back there for the Niners this season. The plan has been the same. They're still a top 10 rushing team, whether it was Jordan Mason, Christian McCaffrey, or Guerrero lining up behind Purdy. But there is no doubt that this has been more than a string of bad luck at the position for these Niners, and Emerson Lazia decided he needed to investigate further.
You're entering a window, or is it a door? On the inside, there's a team with championship aspirations. A team that's been to the Super Bowl twice in the last 5 years. A team that started the season with the reigning Offensive Player of the Year in the backfield, but because of injuries, could be on its 5th string running back tonight. Is it coincidence or curse? Maddening or maddening? You've now crossed over to the injury zone. We'll start where it began, the beginning. 1999, Garrison Hearst, a 49er himself, becomes the first athlete to grace the cover of the popular electronic art. Hearst had a good run before gruesomely breaking his ankle in the playoffs against Atlanta. The year 2000, Barry Sanders, only missing 7 games over a 10-year career, found himself on the cover of John Madden's cursed console game and mysteriously retires before playing another snap. 2002, sturdy signal caller Dante Culpepper fronts the sinister sports franchise. And then, an unlucky Week 13 against the Titans, suffers a season-ending knee injury. Falk, ankle. Vic, fibula. McNabb, groin. Then there was Peyton Hillis in 2012. He hasn't been heard from since. There was a brief time in the late 2010s the curse appeared to be broken, but it's back with a vengeance. And this time, targeting not just one man, but an entire positional group in the Bay Area. McCaffrey's misfortune started almost immediately. He missed the first 8 games of the season with Achilles tendonitis in both legs. And after finally returning to the lineup, he didn't even make it through 4 games before injuring his knee in Buffalo, officially ending his campaign.
I mean, it sucks. He's one of the best running backs in the league, and when you lose him like that, I think it takes away just sort of how we do some things within the offense, but, it sucks.
His backup, Elijah Mitchell, well, his season was over before it even started. A hamstring injury in August required surgery, and that was the final chapter in the book of Eli. 3rd string, enter Jordan Mason, who started the season strong and was ready to take the reins back from CMC. But instead, he became his injured reserve ally after suffering a high ankle sprain. In comes Isaac Guerrero. Ever heard of him? Before last week? Probably not, when he became the hottest waiver wire ad in your fantasy league. However, his fate was anything but a fantasy, as he was forced to leave his first career start with a foot sprain and enters tonight listed as questionable. It hasn't been pretty for the guy lining up behind Brock this season, and with San Fran's playoff hopes hanging in the balance, the biggest question now is, who's next?
Thank you, Emerson, for that lovely breakdown. Clearly a thinning running back room. Here's a look at the current depth chart. Patrick Taylor, 7 carries for 25 yards and a touchdown last week against the Bears. We saw some Vaughn in there as well. But as we said, it looks like Isaac Guerrero is good to go, and certainly that is the best option, Trey.
It is, but I'm still of the opinion that, they'll find somebody from the stands and suit him up, and that Kyle
I could probably go out there.
Run for 86 yards and 4.6 yards per pop. It just seems the way it is when everybody lines up for Kyle Shanahan. But again, and as Marshall alluded to, weather could be an issue, sloppy track. That does favor potentially the 49ers running.
And luckily, as I talked about with the next-gen stats, the Rams are one of the worst against the pass right now, so they luckily can just lean on the pass. Hopefully they won't need too much out of the backfield, but as we know, becoming one-dimensional, not ideal.
Never a good idea. Speaking of one-dimensional, that's a perfect segue to this next little piece of information. It's like you're a professional or something, Claudia. Well done, Bellafotto. The Eagles are 11-2. 11-2. They won 9 straight games. But it is not always sunny in Philadelphia. After the team's too close for comfort win over the Panthers. By the way, the last 3 teams that have played the Panthers, they've been lucky to get out of that. Carolina's playing a lot better. There was some drama when A.J. Brown called out the passing game as something that needed to be improved. He said passing. Brown wasn't targeted until the second quarter and showed frustration throughout the game as well as after it. And whether it needs to be improved or not, the Eagles certainly aren't airing it out a lot this season. I mean, they're the 31st ranked passing offense. That should not be when you have a quarterback that you paid all that money to and A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. We can talk about Saquon Barkley and the great things he's doing all you want. Can't be 31st with that kind of talent at quarterback and wide receiver. And to make matters even worse, teammate Brandon Graham, who's on IR, stirred the pot even more when talking about Brown and Hurts' relationship on a weekly radio appearance. There you go.
The person that's complaining need to be accountable. And I'm just being honest. You know what I'm saying? Like, and he know this. I don't know the whole story, but I know that one is trying. And I mean, 11 could be a little better with how he responds to things. And they was friends before this. It's like, man, but things have changed, and I understand that because life happens. But it's the business side that we have to make sure that we don't let the personal get in the way of the business, and that's what we got to do better as right now.
And by the way, after that, Graham went and apologized and said, I spoke out of turn, all this kind of stuff. But just to break it down, 1 is Jalen Hurts. He said 1 is trying, and he said 11, meaning A.J. Brown, needs to do better. So now everybody knows that there's an issue. Why are they still talking about this? I
think it's the clear sign when anybody starts with either no offense or I just gotta be honest. Just stop right there, because it's usually gonna lead to something you probably shouldn't say on a microphone.
Yeah, well, it's like Anthony Richardson when they tapped out. They said, I'm not going to lie to you. My friend Chase Daniels said, no, lie. Don't ever say that.
When you say those words, it's a bad sign.
Just don't. Okay, for more on this, let's go back to our former offensive lineman, Marshall Newhouse. Marshall, there's a lot of drama here in Philadelphia. Like, winning is the ultimate deodorant, right? It's supposed to cure everything. It's not working here. And is it even more problematic when you consider how things fell apart last year in Philadelphia?
I don't know if it's more problematic, but it is the most noise I've heard coming from a successful Super Bowl contending team,
right?
In my lifetime. I think there are ultimate ceilings to Jalen Hurts' ability, and I think that's being showcased. And I think A.J. Brown, having made his way out of Tennessee, feeling like he was, shown some love by the contract that he earned, feels like he should be more involved in his offense. But being last in passing is not just because Saquon Barkley is that good.
Right.
It's because there are actual deficiencies in Philly's pass game. Now, I don't know if it's schematic, but there's definitely limitations to Jalen Hurts' ability from the pocket. And so I think this is incumbent upon Nick Sirianni and Kellen Moore to manufacture more opportunities for the former Heisman Trophy winner and A.J. Brown, who is a matchup nightmare. He literally changes the math on the field, whether you can add a guy extra in the box when he's on that side, whether you have a safety who's leaning his way at the top of the field. And so they have enough weapons. They're winning. The Carolina game shows they're winning just enough. And they have an incredible offensive line that they'll figure things out. But they're going to have to work with some obvious limitations of Jalen Hurts. And that doesn't sound great knowing you've paid him that much money.
What do you bet we see a fade to A.J. Brown on the first drive of the game in the corner of the end zone? I'm just throwing that out there.
He's going to force feed him 6 times in a row.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Just to see how much he really wants it.
Yeah, angriest 11-2 team I've ever seen. We talked about Bill Belichick last week, and it was just the rumblings about him going to UNC. It's now official. He had the presser there today, and he was just smiles the whole time, talking about his dad being there for 3 years as an assistant coach. Here's a little clip from it.
This is really kind of a dream come true. I grew up in college football with my dad. As the coach at Navy for 50 years, so as a kid, all I knew was college football, and so it's great to come back home to Carolina and back in an environment that I really grew up in. When you're little, you don't remember everything. Obviously, I was too young to remember a lot of things from Carolina, but as I grew up, you hear the same story over and over and over and over again, and so. One story I always heard was Billy's first words were, "Beat Duke."
There's the smile.
Warm and fuzzy Bill. I'm struggling.
It's nice. We love to see it. It is strange as a New England fan to see it, but I'm happy for him. Some folks, though, are having interesting comments about this. ESPN writer Seth Wickersham said it's a big, quote, F you to the NFL. Marshall, do you see it that way?
Not necessarily an FU, but definitely a resounding I told you so, just from a sense of these guys, I'm talking about the NFLs and the owners, he got one legit interview. I'm talking Bill Belichick got one legit interview with Atlanta, and he ended up, I think, 3rd in that race for a guy who's got 8 rings. It didn't make sense, and I think he was absolutely tired of that level of perceived disrespect for the amount of attention he was getting when he left New England. And so he's just like, all right, you don't want me, I'll go do my own thing at North Carolina. It might not make sense to most people, and I think a lot of media are he's media whipped them for so long, thinking that he can't change, but I think he is ultimately an adaptable, brilliant football mind. He will figure this out. It won't look like we're accustomed to it looking, and there's going to be definitely a level of adaptation, having to recruit and figure out NIL and stuff like that. But I love it. He's a pure football guy. He's a teacher of the game. They're going to do things differently. It will look different, but you can't argue that this is a guy who's had success and could find success again.
Yeah, Mike Lombardi's going to handle a lot of that NIL stuff, essentially be the general manager. My favorite thing about this whole thing, Marshall, is that Bill is 72 going on 73, and they got younger because Mac Brown, who was leaving, is actually 73. Right. So he's 72, but they still have the oldest coach in college football. All right, when the Bills' schedule came out, I think all the team, the coaches, the players, and the fans all looked at this 4-game gauntlet and thought, this is what will define our season. They had the Chiefs, then they had the bye, then they had the 49ers, then the Rams, and now they have the Lions coming up. And, they got just sort of outscored in that game in L.A. Now they got to go to Detroit. What is that game going to tell us about each of these teams?
Yeah, I mean, it's a weather vane kind of game. We're going to see what these teams are absolutely made of against the best. It's obviously in Detroit's home field, but Buffalo has a lot of experience in these high-profile games, and Josh Allen is the guy that they absolutely want in this situation. We're going to see if Buffalo's defense can travel. That game in L.A. was not a pretty game for their defense, who had been playing solid ball, have been filling the gaps, but they've been playing zone, sitting back, and letting teams have to go 10, 12, 13 plays and beat them in the long game. Detroit doesn't mind doing that. Detroit doesn't mind having Penei Sewell tee off on your defensive end 30 times, and Dan Campbell is going to go for it and keep Josh Allen off the field. So we're going to see if Buffalo has a key to maybe challenge a team like Detroit, who I think is the most complete team in the NFL. And then Detroit is going to go against a quarterback who can change the math in his own right. So a guy like that who can extend plays and make their defense be as honest as possible. It's going to highlight that they're missing Aiden Hutchinson, having to make up for it with a lot of blitzing and a lot of pressure. It's going to be an incredible game, incredible matchup. It's going to be as loud in Ford Field as you've ever heard it. And so these are the games that people look forward to, and it's going to tell us a lot about both.
Yeah, if they lose this one, they basically have no chance of getting the #1 seed in the AFC. Marshall, thank you very much. When we come back, we're closing out the show like we always do, giving you everything we missed. And if you're a Brock Purdy backer tonight, you may want to stick around for that stat. Stay with us. Again, if you missed the beginning of the show, this is your last shot at winning a $250 bonus bet on us. I gave out the PowerUp play call, Bunt Cake Blitz, earlier. You have until the end of the segment to win. Bunt Cake Blitz. Here's how it works. Simply open up the DK Sportsbook app, enter the play call in the search bar, tap or click the link that comes up, and you'll automatically be entered to win. We'll notify one lucky winner we've randomly selected when the show is over. You got less than 5 minutes left. Go get it.
Now I'm hungry. Bunt cake. You could use that $250 to bet on a first touchdown scorer, which is what our next gen cat is doing right now.
Oh, where does he go?
Where's
the Emmy?
Where's the Emmy? Where's the cat going? Where's the next gen cat going? Okay, first touchdown is
Kittle.
George Kittle.
Hiding next to the Emmy. Just want to
Man,
point that out.
that's just a smart cat, isn't it? All right, so the cat likes Kittle, first touchdown. Here's how humans are betting the anytime touchdown market. Kyron Williams, got to drink a little juice there. Same with Isaac Guerendo, who's officially in. Him and Greenlaw both activated for the Niners. Cooper Kupp, some good plus money there, as well as Kittle and Puka Nacua. For more on how people are betting tonight's game, here's DKN social media correspondent Megan Townsley.
The last time we saw the Rams versus the 49ers, it ended in chaos. Okay, the Rams pulled off the win, but I want to show y'all who our bettors are backing in the DraftKings Sportsbook betting groups because I think we might be seeing more of that chaos tonight, especially with tight end George Kittle, who thrives in that environment. Now, Megan making money in the Barstool betting group. She's taking over 4.5 receptions for Mr. Kittle, and Chris Clemmer, He's also liking the tight end. He's taking George Kittle as an anytime touchdown scorer. I am loving both of these bets because if there's one guy who's going to go crazy in an in-division game, it's going to be George Kittle. Okay, now Ryan Ribeiro, he's actually doubting the Puka Nacua magic, and he's taking under on receptions, under 7.5 receptions for Nacua tonight. Nacua had 12 receptions last week, so this is a little iffy for me, but 14 people are already tailing this bet, and if you want to do the same, all you have to do to find these betting groups is open up the DraftKings Sportsbook, then click on the social tab at the top, and then hit the betting groups button. There's a good amount of talent in this matchup tonight, so if you don't know who to bet on or you just want some advice, head to dknetwork.com to read and watch all of our cutting-edge analysis, and then head back to these betting groups to make sure you get in on the action.
Megan, thanks. You know how we end this show. It's a tight 60 minutes, so everything we couldn't fit in there, we put it in this little thing we call the data dump. And let's start with Brock Purdy. Pretty bad sign for Brock tonight. Dating back to Christmas of last season, Purdy is just 1-7 against the spread versus teams above 500 on the season. His lone cover coming against the Seahawks earlier this year on Thursday Night Football, Claudia.
Hey, I have something crazy, guys. Christian McCaffrey is kind of important. The Niners,
hell you say?
Now 6-7 straight up in games where CMC gets fewer than 10 carries or doesn't play at all. Between San Francisco and Carolina, McCaffrey's teams are 23-34 straight up in that spot.
Kyron Williams, touchdown machine. The Rams back has scored the first touchdown each of the Rams' last 3 games. He's also scored a touchdown in 9 straight games LA has been listed in as an underdog.
And some more trends we may have missed. Each of the last 4 games between the Rams and the Niners have gone over the total points line. San Francisco has won the first half money line in 9 straight games against the NFC West, which is something you can bet at the DraftKings Sportsbook. And the Rams have covered 3 straight games against San Francisco as an underdog, catching that key number of 3 tonight, Trey.
Okay, a couple of interesting things here. You know, people are like, what's wrong with Brock Purdy? Well, he leads the league in yards per attempt. He also led them in yards per attempt last year. But here's the bigger issue. The 49ers this season are 22nd in yards after the catch. Okay, why is that important? They led the league in yards after catch every year from 2016 to 2023. So that big play explosiveness we just haven't seen without McCaffrey, without Ayuk, and Deebo has not been able to get it done. So that's the thing that has really been missing from this 49ers offense.
Yeah, but as we saw with that next-gen stats, Juwan Jennings has emerged as that guy they can really trust downfield with that deep ball. So maybe we see a few of those, and that might be all they really need against the Rams tonight.
They need it. Again, if they lose, the 49ers have a less than 1% chance of making the playoffs. Rams lose, their chances go down to about 23%. It's going to be a great showdown tonight. Hope you enjoy the game. For Emerson, Marshall, Pritch, and Claudia, Bellafotto, I'm Trey Wingo. Thanks for watching the Pregame Power Up.